We want to bring in Thane Rosenbaum. He's a distinguished university law professor at Toro College. Sir, thank you for joining us. Give us your perspective on all of this right now.
Well, Rob, look, there's several different levels to this. There's some of the state cases that deal with things like defects in the balloting, right? Phantom voting, commingling of ballots. Not all of that involves fraud. We're spending too much time talking about fraud. For instance, this new allegation that in Nevada, if there are tranches of ballots that went unverified, that just got tossed into the pile and got tabulated without anyone verifying the technical requirements of the balloting, that does not serve democracy. So those are separate issues. Also, the president, of course, is entitled to recounts in several of the states in which the margins of victory were so small. But the one thing, Rob, that no one's really spending a lot of time talking about is the Supreme Court case. I've been talking about it since I first appeared on NewsMax the morning after the election. People are discounting the significance of it. The case is already at the Supreme Court, Rob. Just last night, or 2 nights ago, Justice Alito reminded Pennsylvania election officials, make sure the ballots are segregated. Why? Why would a Supreme Court justice, for the second time already in 2 weeks, tell Pennsylvania to segregate the ballots of the late arriving ballots? Because the reason is accepting those ballots might ultimately be constitutionally impermissible. Justice Kavanaugh said that, wrote that in the concurring opinion in Wisconsin 2 weeks ago. And Justices Gorsuch and Thomas, from what everyone believes, agrees with that. And of course, you have now Justice Barrett, President Trump's most latest addition to the Supreme Court. That's 5 justices. And if the extending the deadline was constitutionally impermissible in Pennsylvania, then theoretically it was impermissible in Nevada and in Georgia. And all of those states, if the Supreme Court chooses to do so, all of those late arriving ballots could be invalidated.
How many do you think does that make it? Does that get the president to a different number? Does that change it? Does that flip it?
You're raising a good point, Rob. If the Supreme Court is definitely going to ask, as a matter of fact, how many ballots are we talking about? Because if there are too few, the court doesn't want to get into an academic exercise, right? They may say this was constitutionally impermissible, but it doesn't make a difference. But again, the Trump legal team keeps saying that there's tens of thousands of ballots that are in some ways suspect. And again, I'm not even using the word fraud. I'm just saying they're suspect, that they don't serve the interest of democracy because they weren't being verified. Or so if, in fact, what we don't know is how many ballots actually arrived after Election Day and that ultimately got tabulated and were segregated. And until we know the answer to that, and to know whether, remember, 70% of those ballots we expect had gone in the mail-in category, went to the Democrats, went to Joe Biden, right? So you have to do the math to figure out how many of the ballots that came in after Election Day could reasonably be counted by Biden and then would have to be subtracted from his total. But you're quite right, Rob. The court is going to have to show that there's evidence that the balloting actually would flip the outcome. And if it doesn't flip the outcome, the court's probably not interested in the constitutional question. If it is, all I'm saying is this Supreme Court has already sent a very strong message that it is very interested in what's happened in Pennsylvania in light of the fact
with what Alito did. Yeah.
Right. And Justice Kavanaugh in the Wisconsin case, they're very, very clearly interested in saying the Constitution says that state laws regarding federal elections must be enacted by legislators, not courts, not election officials, legislators, and not in Georgia, not in North Carolina, not in Pennsylvania, not in Nevada, were any of the legislators responsible for passing legislation to extend the deadline. And this is what Kavanaugh is interested in, and certainly Alito. Remember, Alito warned everyone. unless we decide this 2 weeks ago. And he didn't. Was probably wish we had, because he wondered, why are we not dealing with this now to give voters at least the assurance that their vote will be counted.
That's so interesting. Boy, that really is. You bring some great perspective here, because when you think about it like that, if it's not just Pennsylvania, if you're then extending it out to Georgia and other states, then you start to see a possibility where something could flip. Because I keep looking at this saying that if it's just one state, the president's down in like 5 states right now. He's got to win 4 of them. You know, it's got to be more universal.
Right. And Rob, one more point. Everyone, including Rudy Giuliani, is talking about fraud. Right? Everyone is using about abuse. And what you and I are just talking about with Mark has nothing to do with fraud, abuse. It's not a matter of facts. It's a matter of constitutional law.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Was it impermissible to count any of those ballots? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know several Supreme Court justices are interested in the question. It has been under review in Pennsylvania, and one Supreme Court justice just told Pennsylvania a day ago, make sure to keep the ballots segregated. He must have a reason for that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thane Rosenbaum, great to have you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob.